What is going on, everybody? Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and whatever time it is, and welcome back to another video with your man, Immersioholic. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my Rise of the Julia campaign for Total War Rome 2 Divide et Impera, plus a bunch of submods. Today we are getting started with episode 4, and this is actually going to be a slow start. For once, it feels like our last few episodes have been rather hectic, but that's because they kind of were. We were scrambling to consolidate all of Italy and basically scrambling for survival. Right now, though, it's more so about ensuring that our economy allows us to continue surviving. Public order and our economy are both in shambles at the moment. So we're going to be spending the next few months in game focusing on establishing a strong economy, or at least a strong start to the economy. It's going to take quite a while to build up, especially with our low income. Well, it looks like a lot. It actually isn't in the grand scheme of things with our submods that we're using. During the middle of winter, we get an interesting development with the RDI attacking Epirus. Now, this initially sounded like a good prospect to me. Excellent. We have good relations with the RDI. Epirus we hate, who we just kicked out of Greece, but we shall see how that goes. Here is a little panel showing us the year 277 BC and all of the major events that happened in and around Europe. If you guys would like to read it, feel free. As the campaign develops, I might be more interested in reading the Roman section of it, but for now there isn't a lot happening for the Romans during this time period, besides consolidating Italy, which we've already done in game. Besides that, not too much is going on. As you can see, Macedon is currently in a war with Athens and Sparta and Egypt, although that's interesting because Egypt is rather far away. Regardless, it is good news. Some interesting news is that Syracuse is now declaring war on us. I'm not too sure why. They are at war with probably the biggest major power in the game, which is Carthage right now. So it's very interesting, but regardless, they do declare war, so we're going to gear up for war. We have no other threats at the moment. The Veneti and the Ligurians are still at war in the north, and neither have come out on top just yet. So we're going to begin by recruiting some auxiliary units from the region of Tars. Luckily, after our winter of establishing our economy and developing our infrastructure, I actually got some buildings that allow us to get some auxiliary units. We could get some hoplites, but I'm not interested. Times are changing, and we are Romans, and if the Romans were known for anything, it is their ability to adapt and overcome against overwhelming odds, but also overcome and adapt to things that no longer work. And in this time period, the hoplite phalanx just is not working as well as it used to. So instead of recruiting hoplites, we're going to be focusing on recruiting axemen, specifically Illyrian axemen. They will be one of our most valuable units in the wars to come. As you can see, a bunch of different things are happening. In the Far East, the Seleucid vassals are rebelling, which is pretty good to hear. It's nothing bad at all for us. The more chaos that's happening around us, the better, as people will hopefully stay too busy to attack us. Here's the bad news, however. It appears the RDI immediately lost their war against Epirus. The city that was held by the RDI has already been liberated, and a puppet government has been installed by Epirus. And it is just not looking good. I even considered breaking off my diplomatic relations with the Illyrian tribe, but at the moment it would just look bad if we did, so for now we're just going to leave it at that, and they'll probably be wiped out within the next turn or so. But all in all, that is a big loss for us, as it makes Epirus stronger. The next month, however, Syracuse actually does send an army against us. I really wasn't expecting this. They've never done this to me before. So, since the First Legion isn't too far away, though, this won't be a problem. What we're going to do is march towards them. And then if you look around the center of the map where I'm sending the First Legion right now, there's a fairly small strip of land. It's almost Thermopylae-esque, I guess you could say. And if I plant the First Legion there, the Syracusan army cannot get around us, at all, and they will be forced to attack us if they want to get to the city of Consentia, which is just behind the First Legion now. To further show off our strength, I'm going to be recruiting more auxiliaries, so if the Syracusans decide to try anything, they're going to get absolutely demolished. Another interesting development, the RDI Confederation declares war on the Macedonians. Not too much of a big deal, as Macedon is already at war with the other Greek states, but it just adds to the chaos that is Greece at the moment. Syracuse immediately falls back their army, which is not unsurprising. But not only do they fall back, but they're just sitting right outside their city, so we're going to have a little bit of a staring contest against Syracuse, as despite our army being far larger than theirs, I can't really just chase them instantly over to Sicily. We have two major things to think about. One, public order in Italy itself, which is not in a great state. And two, what Carthage will think if we invade Sicily, which we will get to in a moment. Again, just showing you guys that in the far north, not a lot is happening between the Veneti and the Ligurians. They are definitely still at war. As you can see, the Veneti army was actually raiding in their territory. But for now, it seems our northern flank is fairly secure. Now I'm going to actually put some construction projects on hold so I can recruit more auxiliaries into the army. We have a solid amount of infantry right now, but we do need cavalry if we're going to invade Sicily, which I'm kind of debating at this point. We're going to need the cavalry to beat their own cavalry and to outflank their heavy hoplite armies. Here we have a very interesting development with pirates spawning inside, well, just off, I should say, the Illyrian coast. This is a new feature added in by the DEI team, which causes pirates to spawn in randomly around the world, although this is the first time I've ever seen them. And they will usually raid the coast, as in they will stay in the ocean and just raid in the raiding stance, which actually cuts into your money quite a lot. And if they did that, that would be a lot more deadly than what they're going to do in just a minute here.
Please,
just for the sake of interest, I looked into buying them off for peace and seeing if I could get them to focus on harassing my neighbors, but they weren't interested. Fair enough, not a big deal. But it could be a big deal if they do the smart move, I should say, and stay there raiding our major trading route. But as you can see, they do not. They actually attack the coastal town of Asculum in the far northeast of Italy. While you wouldn't think this is a good idea, or why you'd think it is a bad idea for us, it's actually turned out to be terrific, as I can just auto-resolve this away, no problem. I'm not too sure why. It's probably a little bit of a bug, and to be honest, I kind of felt a little dirty doing this against the AI, but right now, because we certainly cannot afford to gather a fleet, I'm just going to auto-resolve it regardless and take it. In the south, not a lot is happening. We've recruited our army completely though, and now I'm ready to march into Sicily itself. Syracuse put their army on transport ships, indicating they might be interested in heading around towards Tars to try and cause some issues for us. So I take the initiative here and land the First Legion in Sicily. We actually march right up to outside the city's limits in an effort to try and draw the enemy's army back onto land and to fighting us outside the city rather than us having to siege it. Here the pirates once again attack Asculum. Again, not a big deal. I'm going to auto-resolve it, but I'm going to be aggressive this time in stance. So we try and wipe out their entire navy, and we do. Rather decisively. I'm not too sure again why the auto-resolve was so against them, but it was. And so for now, I'm just going to take it. But as the game develops more and more, I'm sure pirates will become far more of an issue for us to deal with, especially once we have navies that can fight them. It'll be a lot more interesting, at least. And just as I hoped, the Syracusan army has landed off their transport ships and is sitting outside Syracuse's walls. I get rid of a lever unit here, as I feel like the Tarentine cavalry are one of the best in the game, at least at this point in the campaign. And so, to me, we really need the cavalry advantage if we're going to beat their massive hoplite wall, and it is going to be a big wall that we're going to have to get over. So now, fairly averagely matched in the cavalry department. Infantry-wise, we're all about the same. They have some good mercenary swordsmen and some solid heavy hoplites. They do have a lot of archers, and they will become a bit of a pain in the butt. But anyway, I'm still going to go for it despite them outnumbering us and actually perhaps even having better mainline troops. But regardless, we're going to dive into it, and I shall see you all on the battle map. And here we are on the battlefield. General giving a very inspiring speech, as per usual. Good old Gaius is a big fan of soldiering, and soldiers love him in return. Anyway, army composition. I have my 2 Italian units of cavalry on the left flank, my Tarentine Sicilian cavalry on the right, although I guess they are technically Italian as well as a Tarentine, aka from Taurus. We have our levies on the front, who will be our scouts and light infantry, as per usual. In the second line, we have a mixture of the Illyrians and our Hastati units, and then in the rear, we have our Principes. Now here you can see I'm fast forwarding time as we have a very long march ahead of us. I send up the Tarentine cavalry to the mountain in front of us, as half of this map is open plain, which is the territory I had to spawn in, but then the other side is a lot of mountains and valleys. And it looks like the enemy was holding up in the center of one of them, so to try and get some extra positioning on the enemy, some better positioning, I push my troops up the right-hand side of the map and then try and take the steepest mountain that actually has a lot of foliage to give us cover on our advance. And as you can see, the enemy does not see my entire army this whole time. My army is already on top of the mountain by the time this cavalry unit here gets spotted by those swordsmen, and then we see the rest of this Syracusan army popping out from nowhere, honestly, but popping out nonetheless in front of us. Quite a few units, but we know that's not the entire army, so I'm still going to be setting up my army in the valley between 2 mountain peaks on the southwestern side of the map. I'm going to be skipping through a fair bit of this, as a lot of the time I spent at least about 12 minutes in the battle just squaring up against the enemy trying to get a fight, so forgive me for skipping through a fair bit, but it had to be done. It was a very long staring contest for quite a while. I tried to get the enemy army into a position that I could dictate and that I could have the ultimate advantage, but it was kind of hard, as you can see on my left flank down there, the enemy troops were quite close to high ground, so they could also get a little bit of better positioning on me. Here is where the first exchange actually happens between my Tarentine, far out, Tarentine cavalry and the enemy cavalry. They run away, and then they send their archers forward. Now me thinking that this is a sign of things to come, I pull my entire army back a few hundred meters. I try to get up on top of the mountain so I have the ultimate advantage, as I can see my left flank is being wrapped up by the enemy and they're sending troops up into the forest where I only have my Italian cavalry. However, the enemy doesn't actually advance. They end up stopping and sending forward just a single archer unit, which we'll be trying to deal with right now with my cavalry coming down the hill. We chase them away, and as we chase them though, we will see the enemy's main battle line starting to appear on the minimap, but also right in front of us. As I said, the latest Divided Impera patch really changed the line of sight in battles dramatically, and so I really cannot stress enough the importance of cavalry and scouting in this. But since we scouted out the army very thoroughly, I thought I'd show you guys the enemy's army, which is essentially just a shit ton of hoplites. Quite a few archers mixed in there. I believe they have 5 or 6 units, and some cavalry including the general's unit. Again, a fairly fair matchup. Now, to stop their archer advantage from constantly whittling away at us, I actually decided to push down the mountain. I do secede a little bit of my advantage in this, but all in all, I still feel like it was the right call. We're going to get a downward charge eventually, if we do end up charging into them. On the left flank, this is where the main battle finally begins, with my cavalry pushing away some archers. There was some hidden hoplites in the forest, and luckily at the very last second I saw them and pulled my cavalry back before they got charged into them. That would have been disastrous for that cavalry unit. The enemy alters their central line to bring some swordsmen up onto our right flank in the forest, which you're going to see is going to cause us some trouble later on. Right now, though, the levies, since they are in range, are decimating some of the enemy archers, and they'll be engaging their hoplites as they move forward somewhat, but not too much. That unit there on the left, I'm sending forward as a sacrificial unit to really try and get the enemy to attack me. I don't really care about tiring them out right now. It's more so about trying to disrupt the enemy's line. The biggest advantage a hoplite army has is its battle line. It is solid and hard like concrete, so we need to snap that and at least get some cracks in the formation so we can outflank them. And this is our first crack right here. For whatever reason, they send a single militia unit forward. Maybe that's their sacrificial lamb to get me to attack, but regardless, it's going to be more beneficial to me than to them. We absolutely demolished that unit with our peeler getting thrown in by our Principes in the rear now, as well as the Axemen. The Axemen have their own peeler. And then just before they charge, they send in one last devastating volley, and then they get in a solid charge. Not only do we charge this militia unit, but on the right and the left flank we'll be sending units parallel to this unit. We're not going to be charging all the way on the left flank where I'm looking over there now. We're just going to be lining them up so this unit doesn't get outflanked while it attacks the militia unit. On the right, though, we do completely commit, and while it was still a good idea to commit, it is going to cause us some issues later, as that is where the enemy's swordsmen are, at least one of their really good swordsman units. On the left, on the hill, we've pretty much driven them off the hill proper. All there was a cavalry unit and some archers up there now, except for this swordsman unit and this hoplite unit. The swordsmen are outflanking my Hastati up here, which was quite annoying, but I do have a cavalry detachment close by that can get some rear charges in. As my unit of levies, you'll remember I sent in at the very beginning, finally routed, the enemy army started to engage us a bit more frontally in the center. So I reformed my line as they're reforming theirs in the center, and we're going to be engaging each other shortly. On the right flank, though, you'll see my Hastati unit is getting really depleted against these swordsmen. They really just can't go toe-to-toe with such a high-tier swordsman unit. So I'm going to do the old Roman fashion trick of basically replacing the front line with some fresh, solid troops, and in this instance, some Principes, which is going to prove more than a match for the tired enemy Greek swordsmen. In the center, we're still engaging. I'm sending units down one at a time. I'm trying to be careful about when I engage. I don't want to just get into an all-out brawl straight up. I want to be smart about how my units go about attacking the enemy's units. So I do it fairly slowly, I guess you could say. Here, though, this is where the real battle for the battle begins, with a cavalry fight. The enemy sends out one melee Greek citizen cavalry unit against my Tarentine and Italian unit cav. My Italians and Tarentines are just going to absolutely demolish them. The Tarentines are excellent cavalry, and the Italian ones are not bad at all, especially with their armor is quite ridiculously high. I believe it might even be around 80 or something. It's insane. And so getting sandwiched between those units, that unit is going to just rout very, very quickly. Here on our right flank again, the enemy swordsmen are finally routing. As I said, the Principes were no match for them. Principes are just Hastati on steroids, essentially, with better armor. So they won fairly decisively. Some units are routing across the battlefield, mainly just the pleb troops. They sent in some citizens, they sent in some archers. All in all, nothing too crazy to get excited about, but any unit that routs is a good unit to us. Now that my cavalry have won that cavalry's fight, I guess, for the left flank, we're going to be surrounding the enemy and getting rear charges in here. I was hoping this hoplite unit would turn around and give my other cavalry detachment a nice solid charge, but they weren't. But still, that's fine to me. As long as I'm distracting them and keeping them out of their battle formation, it's more than fine. Here we charge the enemy's general. The general unit has been sitting here behind his troops, I guess inspiring them, much like my general was actually opposite him, which is quite interesting. We do get a solid charge on his unit, although we do not get the kill. Finally, we spread out the cavalry's attacks and begin attacking the enemy's infantry, especially in the center here. As you can see, the other 2 or 3 units remaining are in the red or close to it. And then that enemy unit also shattered instantly. And while we do get some Greek citizens coming in to attack my cavalry, I have a second unit of cavalry coming up from behind just to absolutely annihilate them. They're going to get demolished. They really can't handle a cavalry charge of that magnitude. The cavalry really won this battle for us. I really can't stress that enough, and I'm really happy I chose to get the Tarentines just before the battle. Another unit of Greek cavalry runs away. And on our right flank over here, the Principes are now starting to swing out and swing behind the enemy's left flank. And we're going to be wrapping that whole flank up fairly quickly, but I was a little slow in my microing. This was a very large battle, and I was a little slow in that front, as well as the rear charging front on our left flank. But all in all, it's looking fairly promising for us. The next step is getting the general to die. Here he is here attacking our spearmen and cavalry, which are all kind of mixed up in a big clusterfuck here on our right flank. But regardless, the enemy general jumps right on in there. I don't know why he did. I guess he felt patriotic and wanted to support his troops, but either way, it doesn't matter. Our wrapping up of that flank is just way too overwhelming. They can't handle it, and the enemy general is going to have almost no effect whatsoever while his troops are running away. The left flank is still holding fairly solidly against us, which is quite annoying, but I do have a spare unit of Hastati coming in and attacking from the right, in addition to some cavalry, which will be giving off constant rear charges. Here I thought I'd get a little bit of a close-up, show you guys the difference in fighting styles of the Romans versus the Greeks. The Greeks are far more disciplined, but that will be changing as our reform system come in over the next couple of episodes, which hopefully it shouldn't be too far away. But regardless, I thought it was quite interesting. I really do like getting some nice, sexy close-ups. Here goes the enemy's general running away, surprisingly. Unfortunately, we didn't seem to kill him. I could have sworn we did, but apparently, according to the battle replay, we did not. Either way, it doesn't matter too much. It's still going to have a devastating effect on the enemy's troops. They have no support, they have no leader, and they now have no cavalry, so they are completely surrounded. And it's merely just a matter of time until they all get obliterated from these constant rear charges they're going to be receiving. And for all intents and purposes, the battle is basically over. They'll be grinding away at our troops still, but they're only going to be getting a few casualties. Remember, hoplites are not very heavy hitters, but they are heavy holders. They will hold the line for a long time, but they won't really ever do too much damage unless they're against something like cavalry. Even then, they'll still take a while to get some kills. But completely surrounded, and because of their tight formations, the hoplites that is, rear charges on them from the cavalry just utterly devastating, and that wins us the day. The cavalry of southern Italy really gave us the easy victory, but also the Roman troops held steadily. And now I'll see you guys on the campaign map. And so there you have it, a decisive victory for the Romans over the Syracusans. We lose about 700 men, whereas they lose about 4,000 men. An incredible victory, and very, very decisive. Their garrison is all but obliterated, and despite the enemy general running away from the enemy army, the general inside the city died. Now we're going to siege a city, but what we're going to do with the city, I do not know. Obviously, we could take the city very easily, but do we occupy it and risk war with Carthage, the superpower of the West? Or do I try to make them a puppet state and hope that Carthage doesn't mind? Do we just sack the city and leave? I don't know, but that is a question we will have to answer in the next episode. So thank you all for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I shall see you in the next one.